Yeah, I'm just trying to get to the table.
Good morning, everyone. Actually, it's afternoon. This is Doug McMahon, Lord Galaban. When we are in the Dead Poker Society Discord, this is the first class that I am holding, and this is going to be going over the fundamentals of the poker game Texas Hold'em, because that is the typical game that most people play. This is normally played in a no-limit fashion, but there are different variations of Texas Hold'em. You can play Texas Hold'em pot limit. You can play Texas Hold'em limit, which those are extremely different games whenever you talk about the three variations of the Texas Hold'em. The variation that we'll be talking about mainly today is Texas Hold'em no limit poker. And with that being said, I want to welcome the Oz, Mom of Two, Aaron Favre, Narf the Mad, Doug Life, Mia Sobel, and DPS Club, and Pickles. Also, El Toro from the Pocket Cows will be joining us here at this table. So with that being said, let's go ahead and go over a few of the basics with Texas Hold'em. For those that are joining us on the YouTube, I do have the chat up. So if you wish to ask any questions, I can see my chat, so you can ask a question there and I will answer it the best I can, as well as all of the other players as I am discussing things around the board. If you have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask, because that's what we're here for today. And I need to be able to get the board up, so there we go. We have our board up. Okay, let's talk about Texas Hold'em no limit just in the very basics. I was going to set this up for nine players because that is your typical final table. And if you look at the screen, if you look just above the 0, that will be where a dealer is normally sitting at a live table, and we will use that as our 0 point. The seat just to the left, always whenever you're thinking about Texas Hold'em, always think to the left of the dealer, because the cards always get dealt in a clockwise motion around the table from the dealer. Now, once we begin play, the dealer button itself will denote that each player becomes the dealer in the poker table. Now, they do not actually deal the cards. The cards are dealt from the actual dealer spot, but the dealer button will move around the table as you are playing. This works in real life the same way that it does online. Now, with Texas Hold'em, you are dealt 2 cards out of the 52 card deck. Each person gets dealt 2 cards. The position on the button is the dealer. The position directly to the left of the dealer button is called the small blind. The small blind and the big blind, which is 2 spots left of the dealer, always have to put in chips in Texas Hold'em. This is to facilitate play as you garner more and more of the game. Now, in a tournament, you will have what is called blinds. The blinds are typically set up at intervals, and each tournament can have a different set of blinds. In a lot of the in real life tournaments, blinds typically start out at 25 and 50 chips, and then they will go up incrementally every 20 minutes in a real life poker tournament. Most real life poker tournaments start out with 10,000 in chips. Some of the online ones start out with 1,000 in chips. So therefore, I made 2 different types of chip stacks at our table here for today, today's discussion. So if you follow with where the mouse is, this would be seat number 1, which would be the small blind position. Seat number 2 would be Aaron right now, which is the big blind. The seat directly next to Aaron, going counterclockwise, is the under the gun position. This is the first player that once the cards are dealt out, they have the option to whether call, raise, or fold. The under the gun position is typically a very bad spot on the poker table, because you have to think that there's two people that are already in the hand. You are the third person. There are six people behind you that have action. They have the ability to either call, raise, or fold. Now, the position directly to the left of the under the gun is called the under the gun +1. They are the fourth person that has the action. Fifth is under the gun +3. Sixth is typically talked about as the middle position, okay? Because the sixth person from the dealer is pretty much right in the middle. They've got three people behind them, four people, going right around. In the next position, you have what is called the cutoff, okay? They have only two people behind them. The next person is the cutoff +1, or the penultimate spot, which that is typically a very good spot whenever you want to play certain cards, and we'll be going over those. And then the spot just to the right of the dealer button, they are called the hijack seat. Now, the number 8 seat is typically called hijack +1 as well. But the hijack seat, which is the person just to the right of the dealer, they have the action just before the dealer. And the dealer is the button. The button always gets the action without putting any chips in. But with Texas Hold'em, you have to remember that the small blind also has a chance to call, and the big blind has a chance to raise or call, depending on what the betting is prior. Now, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start this to where we can deal out chips, and I can show everyone, because I will be pausing. So let's go ahead and start to where everybody gets chips. So we have started. And now I'm going to pause to where we can see better. Go back to the actual... Oh, darn it. Okay, so we see that Christikins has the dealer button here. As you can see, I'm holding a King 4 and I'm in the small blind. Mia Isabel is in the big blind. El Toro, which he's not here right now, I can tell that he's offline. He is the under the gun. Narf is the under the gun +1. Doug Life is the under the gun +2. Complete Asshole would be considered the hijack. Aaron is in the penultimate, and of course, Christikins is the dealer. So you can see that he would have the first action here. Now, the blinds right now are 100 and 200. In a in-life tournament, the blinds will normally double each time that a new level is achieved. Now, the difference in between online play and real life play is that online play is very, very fast. They want the tournaments to only go a certain amount of time, typically between an hour to about 2 hours. Any tournament that lasts over 3 hours is not normally good for play, because people get tired, people have to go to the bathroom, and there's not that built-in break system that there is in real life. So in the real life poker tournaments, you get a break typically every 3 hours, and every 3 hours you can go through roughly 9 levels, because in real life poker normally has 20-minute levels. So you will normally start play at around noon or 1 o'clock in real life tournament. And the normal day progression will be 12 hours to 13 hours. Normally, you will go until about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then that will allow people to go to relaxing afterwards, and then you've got a good 10 hours before the tournament resumes in real life. Now, online, I noticed that a Club GG, you can set up theirs to where on the 55s, which I know that Aaron likes to do, to where you give everybody a 5-minute break on the 55, which that works out really well because you play for a solid hour, you get your break for 5, you can get up, stretch a little bit, and get out of the seat, walk around. That works out really well, and the tournaments tend to go quite nicely. Now, with all that being said, are there any questions about the very basics of poker? No one? Everybody understands all of these spots and how all that goes?
Just to clarify, just you know what, I'll ask. So
Yeah.
like Krista's the dealer,
Yes.
and now you got the blind, little blind, big blind. So Aaron's going to be the first one to check
No.
or bet.
No.
No, so it's going to.
No. It would be a Toro, because in Texas Hold'em you always play counterclockwise.
Okay, it's wow, it's backwards on my screen. Then that's weird. Because Christican's there, then Lord Galaban. Then too, if you go, counterclockwise would be Aaron, complete asshole, Doug Life, and Narf.
There you go. There you go.
That's
So
counterclockwise.
So, Narf, you are actually under the gun +1. Because looking at my screen clockwise goes Christikins, me, Mia Isabel, Toro, and then you.
Yeah. So why is it backwards on my screen?
I have no idea. You might have to refresh.
Huh. All right, let's try that.
Frank, it's not. Saying the action goes clockwise, not counterclockwise.
Okay, the action goes clockwise.
Yes, always clockwise. Now, there are certain instances in real life where I have played in counterclockwise tournaments, and trust me, it messes you up. It totally messes you up.
No, that's fine. That's okay. When you said counterclockwise before, I was like, well, that's.
Oh,
backwards.
did I say counter? I am sorry. If I said counter, I'm a little bit tired because I held a history class earlier and I've been playing video games and taking it easy today. So I am sorry if I did say
Okay. No,
the
I'm
counter.
clear.
I meant clockwise. So let's
Okay.
go ahead and talk now about starting hands, okay? Everybody that knows how to play poker pretty much knows that any pair is a good starting hand. But the difference about any pair is a good starting hand is where are you playing those pairs at? I'm going to go over pairs first before I even delve into anything else, okay? I'm going to take El Toro's seat as an example. In a tournament or in any game, in the first 3 seats, me personally, and what I've seen playing and in the YouTube land, exactly where my information comes from, I've been playing poker for a long time. 35 years to 40 years now. Actually playing in casinos, I have been playing since October of 1990. And that's whenever I turned of legal age, and I started playing at the Cal Neva in Reno, Nevada. So that's my expertise. I've been playing since 1990. So technically 33 years as of right now. Playing poker overall, I've been playing for well over 40 years. So that's my knowledge base. So let's go ahead and talk about starting hands. If you are under the gun, a typical starting hand, you want to play pocket aces, pocket kings, pocket queens, pocket jacks, okay? Those 4 basic starting hands. A lot of people like to think, well, what about ace king suited? What about ace queen suited or king queen suited? Under the gun, you have to realize that there are 6 other people at a full table behind you. And if you're not playing prime solid hands, or if you don't bluff and pretend like you're playing one of those prime solid hands, the chances of somebody having something better than you behind you and raising your bet or calling your bet are over 3-to-1 odds that they have your cards beat, unless you're starting out with the premium hands. My consideration for the premium hands are pocket aces, pocket kings, pocket queens under the gun. Sometimes pocket jacks, depending on how the board is actually playing, or if you know the people that you are playing against and their knowledge base. Now, under the gun +1, there is where I would add in pocket jacks into the mix to where you have 4 solid starting hands on the under the gun +1, which would be Narf. In Doug Life, you can add in pocket 9s and maybe pocket 8s, depending on who is playing behind you. In the complete asshole position, that's where you would play 8s, 7s, and 6s. Those are your middle pairs. But you want to be careful playing those because in a tournament, I have always found that whenever you are betting, you always want to bet pretty much the same all the time. You want to bet that way with pocket aces. You want to bet that way with 7 deuce offsuit. You always want to keep everything consistent. At this level, you would want to bet at least a 2x or a 3x bet. That way, if you're betting 600 onto a big blind of 200 in any position, you are telling somebody, I have cards that I plan on playing, and if you raise me, I will, without a doubt, probably raise you back. There are times that you might bluff and you might fold. Well, if you get found out like that, so be it. You might have to eat yourself and throw your cards away. But the typical bets, and I'm speaking of in real life and online, you always want to bet at least 2x to a 3x bet. Calling a minimum bet at any position while playing in any given poker game or poker tournament is called limping. At any time, limping is not the best option ever, because limping, you are telling people, I'm just want to see the flop and I plan that I can outplay you after the flop. Now, in a nice casual game, yeah, limping is fine if you're playing with friends, but if you're wanting to win in a poker tournament, limping is not very good. It is better to either bluff a large hand or not play it at all, because your chips in a poker tournament are finite. You've only got a certain amount, and every single chip in any given tournament is extremely valuable, because that one chip turns into 2, 2 turns into 4, and so on. It's an exponential thing, and you want to get the most value out of every single chip in your hand. Now, into Aaron's position, that's where you would be playing your 5s and your 4s. Into Krista's position, you would add in your 3s and your 2s for pairs. And that going around the table just with pairs is the preferred position. And with the betting, I tried to add both of them in together. Now, let's talk about suited cards, suited connectors, ace king, king queen, queen jack, jack 10. These are all cards that are decent cards to play, but at a full table, you have to realize that if you're in El Guapo's or El Toro's spot and you're wanting to play a jack 10, be it suited or offsuit, you have to worry about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other people plus 6 and 7. You got to worry about everybody else at the table being able to beat those cards. So I could see playing ace king in El Toro's spot, but if you're going to play ace king, you would want to raise to let everyone know, hey, I am the under the gun player, and you've got all the people behind you, all eight people, and you're telling them, okay, I'm going to bet 600 here. I have pocket aces, pocket kings, or pocket queens. Or if you want to bluff, then you might play your 7 deuce there and bet your 3x bet. That's your bluff. But you have to realize that if somebody re-raises you in any of these spots, you would have to imagine that they have some type of a pocket pair. Now, with that being said, anybody can bluff at any given time. Bluffing is part of the game. Me personally, I will like to bluff about 1 out of every 10 hands that I'm willing to play. Now, that's very important that you think about what I just said, that I'm willing to play. I might go 2, 3 orbits. An orbit is every time that the dealer button goes around the table the whole way and everybody has had a chance to be the dealer. That's an orbit. I might go 2 or 3 orbits without even playing a hand. That's because I don't have good cards, or I don't like the people that I am playing with and I'm not quite sure of whether or not I can bluff them. Now, there'll be times whenever you're sitting at a poker table, especially in one of the tournaments, and you'll get tired because you're not seeing good cards. So sometimes you'll take a bluff, okay? Whenever you take that bluff with bad cards, you have to expect that no matter what position you are in, that you are trying to bluff with those cards, that somebody is going to call you on it, just to see if you're bluffing or not. Now, every once in a while, if you're at a really tight table, you can get away with a couple of bluffs. But one thing I have definitely seen in a lot of the poker tournaments, and it's not just here, it's in all sorts of poker tournaments, are the people that are gung-ho. They play what I call ATC poker, and that's any 2 cards. Now, playing any 2 cards can sometimes be beneficial. If you're going up against somebody that's all in their hand, let's say you've got 9,800 in chips and I've got 900 in chips, and I go all in. Now, depending on whether or not what position you're in, you might not even care about what your cards are, because in a tournament, if you have a chance to knock somebody out and you have them covered more than 10-1 in chips, the smart play says call with any 2 cards, because it doesn't really matter what you're holding. You are trying to knock somebody out of a tournament. Anytime you can get a chance to knock somebody out, you take that chance. Now, if you have the same amount of chips as them, you better have good cards if you're trying to knock them out. So it's very integral as you're playing in a cash game or in a tournament mode to realize what your chip stacks are compared to other people's chip stacks, and whether or not you have that chance to take somebody's head. In a tournament, any time that you can risk less than 10% of your chips to take somebody out, it doesn't matter what 2 cards that you're playing, you should take that chance, because you never know what the flop is. And I'm quite sure that with all the poker players that we have here, everybody at this table, if you haven't held pocket aces and called somebody and gotten hammered by a flop, they might flop trips, they might flop a straight, they might flop a flush, and your pocket aces or your pocket kings are toast. You're dead. You're dead in the water. If that has never happened to you, well, you haven't played enough poker, number 1. Is there any questions up to what we've done so far? Anybody? Really?
No.
Wow.
Well, you know what? I do have a question.
Yes.
So, like, all of this I'm talking about is really strictly the placement and stuff is the pairs that, like, going based on having pocket pairs on the initial hands, right? You haven't gotten into anything else, so you're just talking about the betting, where you should bet, and this is only if you have pocket pairs at that point.
I have touched a little bit on the other hands, but we haven't really even gone over the other hands yet, because consider what the blinds are. How many big blinds do you have left? Because that's one of the major things in any given poker tournament, which I'll spend most of the time speaking about poker tournaments because that's what we typically play online. you have to think, how many big blinds do I have? And the cards that I'm playing, are they going to be beneficial in the position that I'm in to allow me to positive up in chips, i.e., at a higher blinds, like, okay, let's just take our blinds right now, Narf. We have 100, 200 blinds. If you're trying to steal blinds at this level, you would literally have to steal 10 blinds to make up for 40 minutes into the game stealing blinds there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because in order to get a net positive here at the 100, 200s, you've got to steal 3, 4 every single orbit, which that would only get you 1,000. Well, if you're starting out with 10,000 in chips and you're trying to get to 11,000, well, you got to steal 5. So you'd have to steal 5 blinds. Now, out of those 5 times, how many times do you think that you're going to have a pocket pair, or an ace king, or an ace queen, or king queen, or king jack? Those are prime starting hands on anything from the middle of the table over to the dealer. They're not prime hands if you're talking under the gun or under the gun +1. Because a king queen or a king jack or an ace king or an ace queen are only good if you hit one of the other 6 cards on the flop to make a pair. Now,
so you're predominantly so right now everything you've been going over is really predominantly talking about El Toro's position, or possibly my position. Like,
yes.
So where we are now, if we don't have a high pocket pair or a premium pocket pair, it's not worth playing in this at all in this position.
Yeah, not at all. Because you have to think of your chip equity. If you bet 600 in this position right now with either Toro or with you, in order to get your chip equity back on a 600 bet, you have to pray to God that the other people going all the way back around to the big blind don't have any cards that can beat yours. Okay? Now, I can preface this with a little bit of what I'll be covering whenever we get to the advanced classes, because the beginner classes are simply the basics of the poker. The intermediate classes that is where I'm going to be covering a lot more of the actual position and the actual cards that you should be typically playing from that position. And then in the advanced classes, that's where I'm going to start bringing in analytics and statistics and percentages, because you have to become so ingrained in your percentages to where you know instantly how many cards are left that you can hit on the flop, on the turn, on the river, because each card that comes out will decrease your chances of catching cards that you need. So in El Toro's position, or in your position, Narf, to begin with, even pre-flop, aces, kings, queens, if I have pocket aces in the small blind, and El Toro has pocket kings in the under the gun, and he raises, you instantly know that I'm going to call because I have pocket aces pre-flop. Aces will beat kings pre-flop 4 out of 5 times. They have an 80% win percentage pre-flop. It's a 4-to-1 count. Any pocket pair going up against a lower pocket pair pre-flop is always a 4-to-1 favorite. You have an 80% chance to beat anybody else with a lower pocket pair. So that's why I say aces, kings, queens being your premium hands just to start with. Because if you have aces pre-flop, you have the best hand. If you have kings pre-flop, you have the second best hand. The only hands that can beat you is a combination of 7 different combinations. and it's the 4 aces mixed together. Any of the suit, or any of the actual cards, aces, kings, queens, jacks, all the way down to 2s, there are only 7 different variations that can be made with those 4 cards. That's all, 7. That's the max. So that's something that you have to understand, that if you have pocket aces, you have the best, period. If you have pocket kings, there are only 7 variations of cards that can beat you pre-flop, and that's the pocket aces. Be it an ace of spades and an ace of clubs, or an ace of spades or an ace of hearts. And I've figured these out a long time ago. I have all these numbers running around in my head. If you have kings and you're going up against somebody with queens, you are a 4-to-1 favorite. If they have queens and you have jacks, you only have a 20% chance to pull one of those other 2 jacks on the flop. Whenever you go to the turn, that percentage goes down to 9%. On the river, that percentage to pull one of those other 2 jacks drops to only 4%. And we'll be covering all of those percentages and the spots in which you play with them whenever we get into the master classes. So what do you think about that, Narf? Have you ever thought of it that way?
Yeah, yeah.
So you're one of the experts, which I know you're an expert, but I'm just using you as the example. Yeah.
Not even close. Yeah.
Well, you're a good player.
Well, thank you.
But did you actually know about those percentages?
No, I mean, I know they exist. I just never, ever thought of percentage. I don't ever think of percentage or any of that stuff because I'm still just learning to play like 4 things that I've learned. So solid mechanics. Whenever we talk about Texas Hold'em, no limit play, you have to have a basis of very solid mechanics. Once you master the solid mechanics, then you can start adding in the variations. You can change up your betting. You can change up where you want to bluff at. There are multiple times, which I'm sure that some of you have actually seen me in play on any of the tournaments. I have a very set pattern at times where I'll bet the same exact thing all the time. It doesn't matter if I have pocket aces. It doesn't matter if I have pocket jacks. It doesn't matter if I have a 10-2. It doesn't matter if I have a 7-2. It doesn't matter if I have an 8-3. It doesn't matter if I have pocket threes. I'm betting the same pre-flop most of the time. Right? That's the same thing that any solid poker player should always have in the back of their mind. The one good thing about playing online versus in real life, we can't see each other's faces online. We can't read their faces. We can't read their eyes. We can't read their breathing patterns. We can't read their neck and the pulse of their heartbeat. These are things that whenever you get to in real life poker, you can use against people. You can look at their eyes if they're not wearing glasses. You can look at their heartbeat in their neck. You can look at the sweat. You can look at the way that they hold their eyebrows. You can look at the way they hold their cards. Are they doing certain things? Do they get nervous? Do they take a drink? These are all things that we can't do playing online. So we have to use other things that will show us what to expect, or what is that person holding? What is their range that they're holding? So we learn the basics first off. In the positions, these are the plays that a good player would typically play in the position that they are in. Now, there's always that outlier, there's always that caveat that you get somebody that is crazy on the table. They might not be crazy in the normal sense, but they play crazy. They'll bet a minimum bet in the under the gun spot. They will go all in pre-flop under the gun on the first hand. You're always going to have outliers,
But if you play solid poker, you will increase your chances exponentially to the tune of 10%, 20%, 50% better. Because as I've watched in the Dead Poker Society, players, there's always that certain amount of players. There's always those one or two players that are in the final five, that are at the final table, that aren't bluffing away their chips. I've seen it over on the DGen United site. I've watched it in the Green Visor games. I've watched it in other games. I've watched it in the Pocket Cow games. I've watched it in other poker tournaments. There's always certain people that tend to get farther in the tournaments. And they play very, very solid fundamentals. And once you get the fundamentals down and you are playing good, solid poker, that's whenever you will blossom and you will be able to take in the other pieces at the poker table and use everything to actually launch your game that much farther and that much better. And you will be amazed at, if you stick to certain fundamentals, places where I should play certain cards, places where I should play my pocket pairs. Let's say you're at a table of 9 people and you are in Narf's spot. You are under the gun +1. And the deal comes out and you get dealt pocket 4s. Okay? How have the cards been coming out? Have the cards been coming out face cards? Face cards being the 10, Jack, Queen, King, and Ace. Those are face cards. Whenever you're talking about cards, those are your high cards. Those are the ones where you end up getting decent flops. If you hold those cards and you hit one of those cards, it's a good flop. But a person in Narf's spot under the gun +1, if he's holding a pocket pair of 4s and he decides, you know what, I've got a feeling I haven't seen any low cards come out in 6 hands or 8 hands. You know, this is a good spot. I might take a shot here. Because if you can pull a 4 on the flop, even if there's an ace, even if there's a king, even if there's a queen on the flop, but you pull a 4 in that position where you're under the gun +1 and you hit a set on the flop, the chances of you winning from that spot with those cards is over 85%. You are an 85% favorite because there's only 2 hands that can beat you if it comes ace, king, 4. Pocket aces or pocket kings. That's the only thing that will beat you. And even if somebody else at the table is playing an ace off or a king off, okay, they got a pair of kings or they got a pair of aces. You've got trip 4s. So even if they pair the board with their ace or their king, you've still got a boat. And once you hit a pair on the board with the trips under, which means you have a pocket pair under and you have tripped up on the board, you become over a 94% favorite to win the hand because they have to catch 2 pair on the board in order to make a larger boat. Or maybe they have a smaller boat that they're drawing to. So you have to think about the positioning and the cards that you play with your fundamental. Small blinds, your full table. Okay, Christikins, she can play almost anything in her spot because if El Toro folds, Narf folds, Doug Life folds, Complete Asshole folds, and Aaron folds, then it's only her cards versus the small blind and the big blind. Now the small blind and the big blind both had to put their cards in. Well, Christikins can play anything. She can play a 7-3 all the way up to pocket aces. And she can raise because the chances of me having good cards, which you can see that I've got a king 4 in the small blind, would I call 600 in this position? No way. I'd throw the king 4 away because the chances of her having an ace or anybody else that bet having an ace and beating my king 4, because even if I hit the king, I have a 4 for a kicker. That's a garbage kicker. I would have to hit a king and a 4 on the flop in order to be able to play my small blind if Christikins bets 600. Positioning, and whenever you're betting, don't limp. Don't ever limp if you can help it. If you're at a table where everybody is limping and you have 5 people going to the flop, that's 4 other sets of cards that can beat whatever you're holding, which that means that there can be anything hit the flop. Now, if you raise pre-flop in any position, if you bet your 3x, if you bet your 2x, you are making people put more equity into their chips in order to call your bet. They're not going to typically call with a 7-3, an 8-3, a 9-4. They want something better than that, because if they're going to put chip equity, i.e. a 2x or a 3x bet in, they want to know that if they don't hit the flop, that they've got something that they can play with. Which is why I stress your pocket pairs on your starting hands. Or if you're in El Toro's position, aces, kings, queens, ace, king suited, ace, queen suited. Those are really the only 5 hands that I would play in El Toro's position pre-flop with a full table this early in a tournament. Now, all of that changes as you start losing people, and we'll be going over that in a later class. Any questions from anybody? Am I making sense to everybody that's here?
Perfect sense.
So are there any questions about the positioning and where you should be playing certain things? El Toro's a position. Aces, kings, queens, narfs. You can add in jacks, maybe 10s. Doug Life, 9s. Complete Asshole, 8s and 7s. Aaron's position, 6s and 5s. Krista's positions, 4s, 3s, and 2s. Pocket pairs. That's good starting positioning. That's good basic fundamentals whenever you're talking about where would I play starting pairs at. Now, if you're a gambler, if you feel something, any don't have to follow the fundamentals all of the time, but if you want to progress and become a better poker player, you have to understand the fundamentals and why you would only play those cards in certain positions. So that's why I've tried to explain it as being, you have to worry that if you're 4 positions from the button, you are basically in the middle position. You have to worry about 4 other people or 3 other people behind you that can have anything better than you. If you're El Toro and you bet 600 on a 7-3, you're going to have to catch 2 7s or 2 3s or some kind of 2 pair or something. Because if the flop comes out 7-3 king, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people behind you that all they need is an 8, 9, 10, jack, king, queen, ace. There's so many cards that can beat you if you don't hit 2 pair or better pre-flop. Anybody with any questions? Because we can go on to some of the other spots, and we could say, here is one of the other things that I really wanted to cover with the basics. Anybody that has followed one of my poker broadcasts has heard me yelling at the computer whenever it gets down to 4-handed or 3-handed at the final table. If you're down to only 4 players at your table, if you're down to only 3 players at your table, because sometimes there are 6-handed max tournaments, which there's only 6 people at the table, you have to expand your play. That means you have to play other cards that you would typically not play at a full table of 9. If you get down to 3 players, 4 players at a final table, any ace, king, or queen, be it suited, be it unsuited, be it with a deuce, be it with another one, any ace, any king, any queen, you should be raising in that position. because the chances of the other two people at the table holding one of the other three cards that you're betting on, be it an ace, a king, or a queen, the chances are less than 20% whenever you are three-handed that a person can match up with you. Now, those percentages are over thousands of hands played. You might hit that one hand where you have an ace king and somebody else has pocket kings or pocket aces whenever you're playing three-handed. But the fundamentals tell me that if I'm three-handed and I'm down at the final table and I have an ace, a king, or a queen, I'm raising 3x, 4x, 5x. Mix it up. You've got to press the issue. I have seen so many people lose poker tournaments because they're not pressing the issue with the chips that they have. If you have the table covered 4-1, 5-1, 6-1 in chips, you should be hammering the other people at that table because they don't have the chips to keep up with you. Anytime you can pull an ace, king, or a queen three-handed, raise, raise, raise. Press the issue because you are ahead 4 out of 5 times. That is huge whenever you're talking percentages. You are at 80% or better to win. Even if the other person has an ace, a king, or a queen and matches up with you. If your kicker is a face card, 10, jack, or a queen, going along with the ace and the king, they have to have a better kicker, which means they have to have pocket aces, pocket kings. If you're playing an ace king and you hit a king, your kicker's an ace. They have to have a king with an ace to match you, let alone beat you. The only things that'll beat you, pocket kings or pocket aces. So when you get down to a smaller table, half of this, five people at a table, that's whenever you can open up your play. You need to be playing from pocket aces down to pocket sevens, or even down to pocket sixes, depending on who you have at the table. You want to press the issue as the table shrinks. You only get a finite amount of good cards at any given poker table. And if you're not pressing the issue and using those cards to facilitate getting more chips into your stack, you are going to be losing chips at an exponential rate. Because on Club GG, one of the things that they have are antes. The same thing is over at Poker Now. There's antes. The antes will eat you alive once you get into the higher levels, levels 15 and up. You could have 10,000, but if the blinds are 1,000, 2,000, every single orbit, you're going to lose 3,000 plus your antes. So you've literally only got 3 orbits in which to find good cards. So you have to open up your play whenever you get down to those. You want to play the ace king, the ace queen, the ace jack, the ace 10. Now, whenever it comes to ace 9 or below, I've seen those overplayed a lot. I've seen king queen overplayed a lot. But the ace offsuit is the one that I have seen overplayed multiple times, and it's way too much overplayed. Any ace offsuit, be it ace 9, ace 8, ace 7, ace 6, those hands are horrible whenever you're playing at a full table. Now, the reason being is that if you hit an ace on the flop, okay, you got a pair of aces. What's your kicker? A 6, 7, or an 8? Or a 9? Okay. All that somebody else needs is 2 pairs, and your pair of aces with your kicker is toast. Or, if one of the other people at the table has an ace with half of the deck higher, let's say you're playing an ace 6. You got to hit an ace and a 6 or 2 6s or 2 aces on the flop to have any possibility of winning that hand in a typical play fashion. So be careful of where you play any two cards, because you have to think, okay, how many hands can beat me in the position that I am in? And the overplaying of an ace with a 8, 7, or a 6 is one of the most overplayed hands in poker, by far, bar none. Because an ace 5, an ace 4, an ace 3, an ace 2, you can make straights on the flop. So you have to think about both of the cards that you're playing. What do I need to hit on the flop? If I'm holding a king 9, I need to hit a 10, jack, queen flop in order to have a straight. Or I need to hit 2 kings or 2 9s to make trips on the flop. If I don't hit those on the flop, am I just throwing my cards away? Okay, if I throw my cards away on the flop after you've called a raise or just pushed in hoping to catch a flop, you are losing negative equity on your chips, because you have put in chips into a hand to see a flop, hoping to get something that will make your cards better, versus playing good cards prior to the flop in proper position and playing solid fundamental poker to where if the flop doesn't come out your way, you still have pot odds to either make a better hand on the turn or on the river that can beat whatever hit the flop, or you have the flop beat going into the flop. If you're holding pocket aces, pocket kings, pocket queens, pocket jacks, and the flop comes out 2, 3, 9, the only thing that's going to beat you in that position is somebody holding pocket deuces, pocket threes, or pocket nines. Or they would have to have played what I call donkey plays and played a 9-2 or a 9-3 to catch 2 pair to get your higher pair. So think about those fundamentals. The overall fundamentals in playing poker, if you play solid fundamentals from the first hand, the chances of you making that final table are that much better. They are exponential. It becomes huge. And the gathering up of chips, you can gather chips at certain times on certain tables. On other tables, you might have to just sit back and go, okay, I'm going to have to wait for this person to leave the table or this person to bust out. Don't ever be afraid in the first 20 minutes of a tournament. If you've got 10,000 in chips and you're watching the chip stacks and all of a sudden somebody has 40,000. Oh my God, they have already got me 4-1 in chips. Okay, look at your blinds. If you're playing 100, 200 blinds, how much farther ahead are they really? Yeah, they are 30,000 in chips ahead of you right now in the first couple of hands. But in 30 minutes, if they keep on playing the same way, they might be lower than you. How many times has everyone here that's listened to one of my broadcasts heard me go, oh my God, one of the chip leaders just got had? Okay, I might not have been watching that table. I might not have seen what actually happened, but more often than not, they are trying too hard to take somebody else's head. And they are frivolously throwing their chips away. In a tournament, like I said, you have a finite amount of chips. And you have to get the most equity out of every single one of your chips. So with that being said, be cognizant of the position that you're in to the button. Be cognizant of the people that are at your table. Be cognizant of when's the next level going up. Where's the button compared to me? Like, let's say I have these 900 in chips left. Christican has 10,000 in chips. And the next blind level is going to be in 20 seconds. Well, I know that a hand of poker will typically take longer than 20 seconds. At a table online, your hands will go much, much faster. In an in real life game, you can literally play an entire hour of poker and only see 20 hands, 2 full orbits of the table. Because a typical hand in real life takes anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. Well, if you have 60 minutes in an hour, and it takes you 5 minutes to play a hand, every single hand, how many hands are you going to see in that hour? You're going to see 12. Okay, well, if you see 12, you're only going to lose your big blind twice, maximum twice. If you're not in the big blind whenever that hour begins, you're going to lose your big blind once. Now, if you're holding on for dear life, let's say everybody has an average chip stack of 50,000 and you have 5,000, well, you're going to have to take more chances than other people. You're going to have to play the ace offsuit or the king offsuit or the queen offsuit because you need double ups quickly. That's understandable. But whenever you're starting out, if you play good, solid, fundamental poker, you should be able to see an hour into the tournament. You should be able to see an hour and a half into the tournament. You should see yourself making the top 10 every single time that there's 50 or more players in a tournament. If you're not looking for those type of goals, you need to reevaluate what your fundamentals are and how are you playing in the earlier rounds. Are you playing good fundamentals? Are you only playing cards that correspond with the positioning at the table versus how many people are at the table? Did you play 2 cards because you had a hunch but they were really bad cards? 7-3, 7 deuce, 8-3, 9-4, 9-5. You've really got to think about every single hand. Every single time that cards come up, one of the things that I personally use is my body's clock. And if I look at a pair of cards in my hand, say a king 4, I would instantly say fold and not even think about it. I don't care what the flop was. I don't care what anything else was. I don't care if I'm, if I would have won that hand. Oh my God, 3 4s came out. Oh my God, I would have had quads with a king kicker. I would have dominated that hand. Don't even think about it. You can't think that way whenever it comes to tournament poker. Here's another thing I haven't even spoken about yet. When you get to a final table or prior to the final table, watch the people that are showing their cards. Use that knowledge. If they show you a bluff, go back and look at their betting patterns on that hand. Did they raise pre-flop? Did they limp pre-flop? Did they raise on the flop? Did they just call on the flop? Did they check on the flop? What are their betting patterns? Because if you can take good enough notes on all the people that you play against, you will find patterns. Most typically online poker players have set patterns that they follow. In real life, it's a totally different game. Totally different. You have to worry about how much money they have in their pocket. You have to worry about how long they are at a table in real life. You've got to think about all of the other things that aren't covered with the online part. So we're an hour into the class already. Holy cow. I told you, Aaron, it was going to be long classes. And there's so much to cover. And I haven't even scratched the surface. We've only been going over pocket pairs. What do you think, Aaron? Are you there? Or did he have to go to that? He might be off at the other place where he had to go to. Let's ask Mom of 2. You're here in the room. What do you think about everything that I've talked about so far? Is she at her mic? Okay. Oz, are you there? Narf, I know you're there. Doug Life. Somebody, anybody, ask me some questions. I relish feedback on these things because I know that even as long as I have played, there's people that have played just as long as I have. Why did that come up? Adjust your soundboard volume. maybe later. Yeah, Narf.
Everybody's very positive here.
So what do you think of this hour, Narf?
There's a lot of information to take in.
And like I said, I have only scratched the surface. We are only talking about pre-flop cards right now and basic fundamentals. Hey, we got OG Ape Club in here. Right on. We've had some other people. How many people do we have in the room? I didn't even look. Okay. Daniel, I know you're a hell of a poker player, and you've been playing poker with me ever since the Gangsta Kong days. What do you think about the class here, Daniel? Are you there? Claps, claps. Daniel, you rarely ever talk. Ah, man. But hey, you play good solid poker. Mia, do you have any questions? Come on, somebody else has to have some more questions, like about a positioning or betting or anything like that. One of the things that I definitely want to stress is that at any given time, you can throw all the rules out the window because it's poker. Any given thing can happen at any given time. So don't set yourself in stone. These are fundamentals. These are what will make a decent poker player a better poker player. But in order to go from a better poker player to an exceptional poker player, you have to add in extras. You have to vary the cards that you play, in the position that you play, the betting that you play in those positions. But the fundamentals, if you follow the fundamentals, you're 2x betting, you're 3x betting. Only play solid cards early in a tournament. Don't play crazy cards in a tournament because you have to think of your chip equity. Chip equity is everything in a tournament environment. You are trying to garner more chips than everybody else. Yeah, Pickle, go ahead.
Oh, a question. You talked about two things which kind of play out a lot at Dead Poker System. One is that crazy player.
Yes.
Who's coming in hot from the word go. You're hesitant to play against them. Then you talk about not wanting to. If you know that you have these crazy players who are coming in, isn't a strong play to limp raise again? Basically, fight them to go ahead and play crazy and raise them right back if you've got the card.
If you have the cards, that's the phrase that I was looking for coming from you. If you have the cards. You have a person that's betting every single hand. They're raising every single hand. They're making weird bets. Well, if you have pocket aces, pocket kings, or pocket queens, yeah, limp. Let them raise. Because then you can 3-bet. And if you 3-bet, bet half your chips. If they go all in, snap call. Because you've got them. More often than not, 80% of the time, you've got them. You have them trapped. If you have your aces, if you have your kings, if you have your queens, those 3 hands alone, pre-flop, are typically, and I'm talking over 90% of the time, you are ahead. 90% of the time. It's that 10% where if you have queens and they have kings or aces, well, you know what? You made the right play, it just didn't work out properly. So yeah, if you have the cards, limp raise them. Or if you know right away that they're going to call, bet 1/4 of your chips. Bet half your chips. Because the chances of them having your cards beat, if you have queens or kings, is 20%. If you have aces, they don't have you beat. At worst, you're a tie. At worst. If you have pocket kings, at worst, you are 15% down. Unless they have aces. If they have aces, you're an 80 to 20 dog. You're a 4 to 1 dog. Pre-flop. But the chances of them having those aces are less than 15%. And I realize that those percentages do not work out because it should be 80-20. Well, no. Because if you think of the 80-20, that's only if you have aces versus kings. You're 80, they're 20. If you have kings, they only have a 15% chance to have aces or kings. So the percentages always change depending on from what position that you're looking from. Does that make sense? So yeah, limping, if you have that aggressive guy, I could see limping. But in what position would you limp from? Let's say they're in Kristikan's position and you have pocket kings under the gun. Okay. You know that the aggressive player is on the button. But what about the 5 players in between you and the button?
Yeah, because you get higher and higher likelihood that one of them actually does have pocket.
Yes. So you have to worry about what pocket pairs are you going to go up against the crazy person with? Which ones would you play? Would you play pocket 7s if you're under the gun with 5 people behind you and a crazy player on the button that you know is going to call? Because all they need are an ace, king, queen, jack, 10, 9, 8, and to hit the flop. Because the flop comes out 3 cards. Well, if they're holding an ace and an 8, and you have pocket 7s, they have to catch 1 of 9 cards on the flop. In order for you to be ahead of them, you have to catch 1 of 2 cards on the flop. If you have pocket 7s. Even though you know that they're a crazy person. They have 9 cards that they can catch. You have 2.
How long did it take you to get all of kind of the math and the numbers in your head to the point where it becomes intuitive rather than having to think through the math, which I'm sure is okay online poker, but would be horrible in real life poker?
A little bit of background on me. I don't think I've shared this with anybody. I hold a bachelor's in business administration, a bachelor's in accounting, and a bachelor's in mathematics. Whenever I went to college, now let me preface that with, on January 1st of 1991, I took $5,000 that I got back from the United States government from my IRS because I had just gotten out of the military and I had a settlement. I took $5,000 on January 1st of 1991 and I told myself that I wanted to go to college in 1 year. And I took all the knowledge that I had garnered up at that point, playing poker, playing cribbage, playing other different card games, and I set out to play poker. Now, by December 31st of that year, I had $80,000 in the bank. So I stopped playing poker and I went to college. And I spent 2.5 years at a community college in Northern California. And I walked out of there on June of 1995 with 3 bachelor's degrees. Business administration, accounting, and mathematics. My mathematics courses, I never went to class. I did what was called clepping at that time. It's whenever you go to the professor and you ask them, can I take the final exam? And as long as you score over a 90% on the final exam, you have clept the class and you get your credits and you're done. I was taking 27 credits every single semester. I have mathematics running through my brain at all times. Pickles. So that's my knowledge base. I see numbers like other people see crayons.
Not come to Summer Bash? I'm not there yet.
That's why whenever I host any of the big tournaments, I am very livid about the fact that I will not play. Because once I sit down and I try, and I play good, solid, fundamental poker, for everybody in this room, in the first week that I joined Dead Poker Society, everybody here watched me I lost in my first tournament, but then I won the next 2 that I played in. And if I'm not mistaken, I've won 4 tournaments now with Dead Poker Society. But I don't play that often because I have so much more fun nowadays broadcasting, teaching, doing other things, being in other spaces, helping projects. I still have a lot of fun at poker, but I have a lot of fun playing real life poker because it's that much easier to me. It's the difference in between trying to eat a ice cream cone on December 31st in the mountains versus trying to eat an ice cream cone on July 4th in Miami. Which one would you rather eat the ice cream cone at? In Miami, where it's dripping everywhere in the first 5 minutes, or in the mountains where it's nice and easy? So, online, it's all about numbers. It's all about position. It's all about the mathematics of the game. Now, at any given time, can those mathematics go right out the window? Hell yes. It happens all the time. I can't count the amount of times where I've gotten rifled holding pocket aces or pocket kings. It happens. That's poker. Once you've played 500,000 hands, 750,000 hands, 1,000,000 hands over your lifetime, it all becomes easier. It becomes secondhand nature. But like I was saying, everybody can learn the fundamentals of poker and become a competent, good poker player. It's putting those fundamentals to action, putting everything that you've learned, reading books, learning the numbers, learning the spots, learning what things are called, learning betting patterns, learning the proper way to bet to where you can't be figured out, which is why I said, even if you play pocket aces versus a 7-3, if you're going to play that 7-3 as a bluff, okay, you've got to play it like you're holding pocket aces. You just have to. Because if you don't, the odds of somebody else at the table sniffing you out as a bullshitter, once they have you pegged as a bullshitter, the chances of you bluffing again become twice as hard, 3 times as hard, 5 times as hard. Well, if you can't bluff with a 9-5 or a 9-7 or a 9-4 on the button, because the big blind, they're just going to call or raise you because they sense weakness in you, well, you've lost the advantage now, and you've just put chips into the pot that they are going to take, because if you 2x where you normally 3x, or you min call where you normally 3x, somebody like me, we're going to pick up on it instantly. One of the players that I watch all of the time that I have become friends with now, Philly P87, that guy's a hell of a player, and he's good. He's very good. So is Ja Marine over there in the DGen United. Those are players that play the fundamentals, and if you watch them play, they play pretty much the same way. They make the same bets. Every once in a while, they'll make a crazy bet. Every once in a while, they'll do something wild. But do they do it 50% of the time? 25% of the time? 10% of the time? 75% of the time? What's their betting patterns? What are they doing? Where are they doing it at? Are they doing it in the big blind position? Are they doing it into the under the gun +1? Are they doing it in the cutoff? Are they doing it on the button? Are they doing it for middle position? How many chips do they have? Are they trying to double up chips quickly? No, you rarely see those guys doubling up chips quickly. They are in it for the long haul. I'll pull 1,000 here. I'll pull 1,500 there. I'll pull 3,000 here. They're not doing the quick double ups. They're not hitting it right off of the snap. So fundamentals. Yeah, Oz, I see you just took your mic off. Do you got a question?
Yeah, kind of. I was just wondering, like, are we gonna play a few hands? Because I can't learn just by listening. So I've probably taken in like 10% of what you said.
Oh wow, I'm sorry.
I have to, see it, and I have to play
Okay.
it, and then I'll be able to soak it in. But
Let's go ahead and play a few hands. Let's go ahead and turn this on. Let's resume the tournament. I would ask that as you're playing, please show your cards at the end. So I know that Mia is away, El Toro's away, Narf, you're still playing.
Yeah,
So-
I was gonna say, it's possible to like we could just say what cards.
Oh,
we
yeah,
have and
yeah.
like, kind of walk through the hands like that and say, like normally we could say, oh well, this is what I might do here, and you could always say, well, this is what I would recommend, and I think it would just give everybody a little better idea because it's
Oh, yeah.
kind of real time.
Yeah, and do you want me to pause after each hand so that we can show what we had it and I can talk about those hands in those positions?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's go ahead and let
I wanna say
everybody.
something.
Yeah.
We shouldn't say what we have. Say
No.
what we have while we're playing, because it will influence what other people are going to do behind you.
Okay, so once this hand's over, everybody show their cards and I will pause it at that point. And as you all can see, I'll be showing my cards. And in the King 4 in a small position, oh shit, I'm on the wrong spot. I gotta go over there to fold. Eh. Hey, Aaron's here.
I don't know these buttons.
Aaron's got new emojis.
Oh, Krista, shut off the game sound because Honey hears it and she's.
Yep.
She's like, what the hell is that beat?
Did I pause it at the right time? Yep. Oh shit.
How I show my cards.
Did I pause? Okay, I paused it. So I have to resume. Let me know as soon as all the cards are shown.
Where do you even hit show cards? I don't even see any buttons.
I just resumed
Okay, got it.
and paused. Let me see if I can catch it at the right time. This is the one problem that I have with Poker Now, is trying to pause it at the right time. Where's my table? Okay, perfect. Perfect. I paused it just at the perfect time. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look here. So Christikins had a King Jack suited on the button. Great hand. Great hand just to start with on the button. Aaron has 7-10 suited on a flop of Jack 5-8. Now, what was your thinking, Aaron, with the 7-10 on the Jack 5-8? Because you had a gut shot straight possibility at that time and a backdoor flush possibility.
Aaron's crazy.
Oh, he's in a space. He can't talk.
Oh, okay.
He's in space.
Okay. So I'm going to take a gander here. Aaron sees that he has 2 spades with a spade on the board, but the 5-8 gives him a gut shot straight possibility on the flop. Now he went ahead and he played into this gut shot straight. Gut shot straight, you're only looking for 4 cards that would help you. Aaron would have needed to have seen a spade on the turn in order to give him 4 spades to a flush just to have any chance. Mia, now, if she would have played onto the flop, she would have had an open-ended straight, giving her 8 cards that could make her hand, because she had the 4 cards to a straight, 5, 6, 7, 8. So she would have needed either a 9 or a 4. So she had 8 cards just to draw to versus Aaron's 4-card gut shot straight. As we can see by the cards, one of the 4s is in my hand, one of the 4s is in Narf's hand. So just by looking at that and knowing what we see, Mia, if she would have played both of her cards, she would have had less than a 10% chance to make her straight because she'd already lost 2 out of the 8 cards that she needed. Because we see 2 other 9s in Doug Life's hand and Complete Asshole's hand, with the King 9 and the 5-9. So I've got to give props to Narv because he folded away the 6-4 under the gun +1. Doug Life folded away a 95 under the gun +2. Complete Asshole was in a middle position with a King 9, but it wasn't suited. So that's a good fold spot there, even though the King 9 is a strong hand whenever you get down to 3-handed play. In a full table, King 9 middle position, not a good hand. The 7-10 suited is an okay starting hand on the penultimate spot, which is the one spot right of the dealer button. But if you don't get a flop, it's no good because you're hoping for such a small percentage of cards, because that 7-10 is a busted straight. It's a gut shot. You're looking for a 9. Now, you've got 7 other hands out there. The chances of a 9 being in one of those 7 hands, 30%. It's somewhere right in between 25 and 30%. So you've got to figure that at least one of your 4 cards to your gut shot in Aaron's spot are gone. So now you're looking at 3 cards hoping on a turn and on a river. So his percentage chances on the flop of catching that gut shot straight have now went from 4 cards down to 3 cards. And 3 cards with 2 draws is only 12%. After the turn, it drops down to 6%. So Aaron was looking at a 6% chance and a 12% chance post-flop of winning the hand. Without catching a spade on the turn, his percentages dropped even farther because there was no flush possibility. But the 2 hearts is going against him, because what if Christikins is holding 2 hearts? Christikins was in the best position pre-flop and post-flop. She bet pre-flop with her King Jack of clubs. Good position. She's on the button. King Jack is suited. You're only missing the 1 card, a connector. King Jack or any cards that are within 2 cards of each other, I consider to be connectors, because it's just that close. 10-8, Jack 9, King Jack, Ace Queen, Queen 10. Those are all good starting hands in a position like on the button. And as we can see on the flop, she caught her Jack. She is instantly 85% to 15% for Aaron. On the turn, she went even higher. She went to a 97% chance to Aaron's 3% chance because she got 2 pair to Aaron's gut shot straight. Now, the heart on the river probably gave a Christikins a little bit of hesitance because there's 3 hearts out there. And the fact that you have 3 cards to a Broadway, Jack, King, Queen. So there are a lot of hands out there that could beat her, but she has to think that on the turn and on the river, she's good because she has 2 pairs, Kings and Jacks. She has top 2 pair. Any questioning on the way that I broke all that down?
So, just one thing. You can call me Colin if you don't call me Complete Asshole.
Or I'll just call you Pickles. It makes it easier. Because that way...
Any of the...
Well, I guess you're a Complete Asshole, though, on the table. Let's go ahead and get this started
that's
up.
done for a reason.
Okay, let's see. What's this? That's that to there. Okay. Resume the tournament. Go to the hand. It should start back up. And here we go to the next hand. So I'm on the button now with the Queen 4. I can tell you with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players with 1 person off, so that means that there's 6 players holding cards. I can tell you right now that a queen 4, it's a throwaway. It's a fold hand. Instant fold hand. Because even though I have position, it's not a good spot.
I don't know what to do.
Do this.
Be the crazy person. Go all in.
I'll call.
There we go. Now I
But
can
if that-
pause.
There's times too that you don't always have to raise. You could just like, for me, I would have called, but I missed the time because my dog. But I would have called, but I didn't. But I would raise. So there's got to be like there's times that you don't always. If you got decent cards, you want to just call, right? And see
Well,
what others are gonna.
sometimes that's where that reading the table comes in. Do you know that there's crazy players behind you, or are there good solid fundamental players? Because if there's good solid fundamental players, you better have a good hand just to start with. So we
Or you're
see
wasting
here
your chip.
with an or you're just wasting your chips. You are not getting good
Oh.
yeah, I didn't pause it in time.
Yeah.
So we go on to the next hand. So now Doug Life is under the gun. So if you've got good cards, yeah. And even under the gun +1. Because we know that Toro is sitting out. Queen 3, not a good hand. So I'm folding away because I know that Narf, he's already into the hand, but is my Queen 3 good enough to be anything that Mia holds? And I say no, so I fold. So now, okay, in that spot, let's go ahead and pause. Did I didn't pause it in time.
Yes,
I
Frank
wonder.
had King 9.
I had King 9, but before that I had Ace Jack, and most likely I was under the gun, but I probably would have just called, just to see the flop, I guess.
See, but an Ace Jack under the gun in that position, you've got to worry about an Ace King, an Ace Queen, or pockets, anything
Right.
above. So if you don't catch an Ace or a Jack on the flop, it's an instant throwaway because you have to worry about somebody else catching a pair. Let's go ahead and
Right.
resume.
Well, I did catch an ace on the flop there, so then I was like, well, that might have been a decent hand to play.
But you've always got to worry about what your kicker is, which is why I really stressed that Ace 9, Ace 8, Ace 7, Ace 6. That's one of the worst starting ace hands, and so many people overplay that ace offsuit hand or the ace. What I call is ace trash. A lot of professionals call it you are playing trash. Well, I had an ace. No, you're playing trash. You're praying for a flop with an ace 9, ace 8, ace 7, ace 6. Those are trash aces. They just don't work together. Did it pause in time? Ah, it didn't pause in time. Damn it. That's the one thing I really
Yeah, we
hate.
gotta go a little slower because I'm playing, but I'm not. I don't know if I'm doing anything right. I mean, I'm winning, but I don't know if I'm.
Whenever I hold the next class, I'm going to up all of the times to where we can pause it easier. I've got everything set up for tournament mode right now, and I need to switch it up. So I folded away a 6-2 in that spot. A 6-2 suited is a hand that I would play, but only if I'm down to three-handed or two-handed. Suited cards are really only good to play in small tables. Three-handed, four-handed, heads up. Any heads up. If you have suited cards, you want to see a flop. Because all you got to do is catch that magical flop. It doesn't matter what two cards you're holding. If you catch that magical flop and you make your flush, boom, you're golden. And the other person typically doesn't read it. Unless you're Daniel Negreanu and you know exactly what the other person's holding because you've got so much knowledge that it's insane.
Pause.
Did I pause it in time? Yes, there we go. I paused it. No! Damn it!
No,
Maybe
I had I had a set of kings.
Oh, you know what? Let me see. Let me pause. Let me see if I can pull up options. Nope. Back. Where's the hand button? Log ledger. There we go. Session log. Okay. Replayer. Okay, yeah, it shows it, but it's a lot easier if we just look at it. So, let's see. Jack 6, 9, 10, King Queen, so a complete. You were holding good starting cards there with a King Queen. 6-2 would have been a fold. 7-6 offsuit should have been a fold. Jack 7 should have been a fold. Jack 6 should have been a fold. Narf, you're the only person that might have had a chance to actually call with a 9-10, but that 9-10 was offsuit, so you're basically begging for either trips, a straight, or 4-card flushes on the board, which are very, very rare. So we go down and we look at the betting. It should have been between Narf and Complete, and Narf folds, but Complete was playing and Doug Life was playing. So Doug Life was playing that Jack 6 of clubs. So you have the Jacks.
I think I did call originally, but then I think Colin raised to 800, and then I folded.
I raised from the big blind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I folded.
So Doug, with your Jack 6, if 3 clubs hit the board, you've made your flush. But an ace, a king, or a queen of clubs would only need a club on the turn or on the river to beat your jack.
Yeah, so I limped in, and then Colin raised, and the only reason I called is just because I would have been the only one to call, just to make the game like show cards.
Okay, well,
for
that's
the
understandable.
class reason.
And that's understandable. So I'm holding a Jack 10 this time. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to raise it, even though I'm under the gun because I'm trying to teach. The bet's 400, so I will bet a 2x bet of 800 because I have Jack 10 under the gun to a 200, 400. So I'm telling the rest of the board that I have 2 cards that I like with my 2x bet. Now, with only 500 in Narf's hand, he has to think, are these the 2 cards that I want to play? Because it would put me all in. Or even if you're holding 10,000 in chips, Narf, it would still be 1/10 of all of your chips, the same way that it is with Doug Life. It's 1/10 of all of his chips. So you have to pressure other people at all times. Limping allows them to play any 2 cards. See, now I just hit a really good flop. The only thing that's going to beat me here is if Complete's holding a queen or if Doug is holding a queen, because I have a Jack 10, so I have an open-ended straight with the queen, queen 9. Now, the chances of Doug having a queen are greatly diminished because there's 2 queens on the board. The same way with Complete. The chances of him having a queen are greatly diminished because there's 2 queens on the board. So the chances of them holding a queen in this spot is under 10%. See, now that's a good bet, Doug. You are betting and calling Complete for half of his cards. And see, there's that one that I'm talking about. This right here is the outlier hands. Doug Life hit the nut. He hit a great starting hand. Queen, queen, 9. He had pocket 9s. He hit the baby full house. But there's 2 hands that could have beat him. A queen 9 or pocket queens. So that was a great bet by you, Doug, and it's the right bet in your position because there's only 2 hands that can beat you. Does that make sense?
And I didn't reveal, but I had 10 Jack suited.
You had a 10 Jack suited, so it was a good fold. Me personally, I would have called in that spot. because there's only really 2 hands that beat me. And look at that. He got quads. Quads on the board. See, so me and you had the exact same hands. But it was a very good bet by you, Doug, because you have to bet the baby boat in that position, because there's only 2 hands that beat you. Pocket queens or a queen 9. That's the only 2 hands that'll beat you. So in this position, Mia, you are going up against a 2x bet. Okay, we have 8 Jack 9 on the board. Now, if you have any pair here, even if it's third pair, pocket 8s, you would bet at least half of the pot, 900. The same way with you. If you have any pair, if you have an 8, a Jack, or a 9, you would want to bet half of the pot. See, that's a minimum bet. That's a limp bet. So now it's only going to cost her 400 to call. If she has a queen or a 7 or a 10, she would call because it's such a small bet. The 4 is no help to either of you, but you allowed her to see another card there, asshole, because you min bet. That's where if you have anything, if you have an 8, a Jack, a 9, or a 10, 2x your bet. Half pot your bet, 1,300.
Okay.
A king, no help. There's no flush out there. There's no, well, there is a straight, but you need a 8 or a queen 10 or the 10-7. So if you have any pair, since she limped, there you go. See, now that's a half pot bet. Now, the difference in between the half pot bet there is so dramatic. Okay, there's that queen. She had, the gut shot, but you had, but you had the open end, because any 7 or any queen gets you the hand. So you had the better hand overall starting out and on the flop. She was going for a gut shot. You had 8 cards that would help you. She had 4 cards that would help her. And one of the cards hit there, one of the cards is right there, and one of the cards is right there. So 3 of her helping cards are already gone. But one of your helping cards is gone. Actually 2, because the queen is there, there's a queen there with a 7. So those are things that you always have to think about, is how many cards do I have that can help me post-flop? Her, she had the queen. She could have gotten a diamond to make diamonds, but that's a very long draw to get that flush. That's why flushes are so damn hard. Straights, she needed a 10. She was looking for a gut shot. She needed 1 of 4 10s to make her straight post-flop. Well, you've got one of her blockers, asshole. And then she has one of your blockers on the flop, but you have more cards. You have a better chance with the king 10 because you've only got to get a 7 or a queen. So post-flop, you were 66 to her 33. On the turn, you went to 80 to her 20. On the river, you went to 94 to her 6. So she was behind all the way. She was a 60.
I played that a little too.
You played it too conservatively because she called the min call. So you allowed her on the flop. You pushed out 400. It didn't cost her that much. It didn't cost her 10% of her stack. It only cost her 5% of her stack with the 400. So on the flop, she checks, you bet 800. Okay, if she comes back With a 2500, she's saying, I've got a pair, or I've got a bigger pair, or I've got a made straight. You got to, or she could be bluffing. You never know. But more often than not, if somebody bets a decent bet, a 2x bet, a 3x bet on the flop, on a flop like this, a 3x bet would have told me he's either got a jack, or he's got a queen 10, or a queen 7, or a 10-7. He's got something that works good. So that's where you're betting post-flop. Don't let the other person come along for the ride. Make them pay to see a card. Do not min bet. Min betting is literally halving the percentage. You want to push people in a tournament. You want to make them make a hard choice. You want them thinking, oh my God, this is going to cost me 10% of my stack. As a normal player, if you're thinking, this is costing me 10% of my stack, or is this costing me 5% of my stack? Which one are you going to snap call faster? 10% or 5%?
Okay, just to continue this conversation, I'm sure Mia will appreciate this because it's why I hesitate playing head-to-head with her. What about check raising?
Check raising is something you've always got to worry about, because she did check into you, and then you min bet 400, if I remember from the flop.
Yeah.
Okay. You min bet because you're scared of Mia. But
Yes,
that
always.
but that min bet allowed her to come along to see the turn for basically free. It's only costing her 5% versus 10% of her stack. Mia, if he bets half pot or 2x on the flop, do you fold away your queen 5? Because if you're pushing only 5% of what you have left versus 10% of what you have left, do you think she would have went for a gut shot for 10% of her chips? She went for the gut shot on only a 5% of her chips bet. But like you said, you've got to worry about a check raise. Okay, if you make that 2x bet and she snap calls to 4x or 5x, yeah, then you've got to think, okay, am I good? What do I need to win? What does she possibly have? Did she raise pre-flop? If she raised pre-flop, she's saying pocket pair or ace king, ace queen. So those are all the options that you have to think about. What was her starting hand to begin with? Well, I can tell you that she was in the big blind, because I know where the dealer button is versus the other two cards. Christikins was in the small blind, Mia was in the big blind. So she already had pot equity built in because she was the big blind. So you allowed her to limp on the flop. You allowed her to limp on the turn because you weren't pressing the issue. You're the button. You are the last action, asshole. So it's up to you to press the action in your position with your cards on that flop. Now,
Anybody but me, I was pressing. That woman has rental space in my head the next time she has check raised me.
and that's a bad thing. You've got to break that. You have got to break that, because as a poker player, you cannot allow anyone to live rent-free in your head. Because if you run up against somebody like me, and I know that I'm living rent-free in your head, I'm going to play the 7 deuce every single time. Because I've only got to catch it 1 out of 5 times, and I'm going to wipe your chips. I can play any 2 cards because I'm not playing my cards anymore. I'm playing you. Because I know that I live rent-free in your head. You've got to get past that. And I realize that it's hard, but
I'm evicting you now, Mia. You're evicted.
Sometimes the best thing that you can do is not to look at people's names on a poker table, especially online. Especially whenever you play them all the time, like we do here at Dead Poker Society. You have got to divorce the name from the chips. You've got to divorce the name from the spot. Divorce the name, period. You have chips, they have chips. You want their chips, period. Ooh, hell of a flop. Queen 10 Jack, 2 diamonds. Now, Mia, I know that you're in the small blind here. Doug Life was under the gun +2. So he had a higher range of hands than you would play. So if you made any pair on this flop or any open-ended straight, you're raising in that position. Half. So, you know, there's a good 2x bet. Doug Life is saying, I have an open-ended straight, or I have a pair, or I have third pair. He's not saying he has top pair by that bet. He can pretty much have anything. Ooh, 8 of diamonds. So now any 9 makes a straight right here. Any 9. There's 1 of 4 9s. But with that third diamond on the board, we have to worry about 2 diamonds in either hand or any diamond in either hand. Now, why did you min raise? That, to me, if I am Mia, the first thing I'm thinking, you're trying to suck chips out of me by doing a min there. Because even a min bet there is not a feeler bet. It's nothing. You're simply throwing 400 chips out there. You're not making a positive move. You're not making really any move at all. You're just throwing 400 chips out there that she just has to call, and it doesn't give her any risk. So now there's 4,800 out there. It's 2/3 of all of her chips. It's over half of all your chips, Doug. And see, there's the 9-10. He had the 9. So Doug,
So I don't know if it was the right play. My min bet was an attempt to trap and make my hand look weaker.
but
That was where my brain was going.
okay, you min bet there, but you had 2x bet on the prior card. So that's why I was saying that that's a nothing burger, because you 2x'd on the 3 diamonds with your bet, but then you bet 400. So that's a trap bet. That's what I call trap betting, because you're simply hoping for a call, or you are giving up for the other person. You are giving them an out. Do not give them the out. Make that other player take the out. Raise in that position. You have a made hand. You have a straight. On the flop, you had third pair. Okay, I can see not raising on the flop with your hand because there's 2 diamonds. You've got 2 hearts. I can see not raising on the turn because you have no diamond. Even though you made your straight, you've still got to worry about a 4th diamond. But you should have bet good on the turn to make Mia either A, beg for a diamond if she has one, or she has 2 7s, as it shows, so she was looking for a gut shot. You had a blocker with her gut shot because you have one of the 9s, and we'll be discussing that whenever we get into intermediate play with blocking and how you look at the percentages with the blocking. So if you would have bet right away on that flop, half bet, 3x bet, she would have folded the 7s away instantly, and you would have not given her that chance to get to you.
So I did bet on the flop.
Yeah.
I did 2 times on the flop. She called.
Yep.
And then she checked on the turn, which made me think she doesn't have the flush. So that's where I thought she was still chasing, and I wanted to make my hand look weaker because I felt stronger than her hand.
Okay, you wanted to make your hand look weaker, but what if she would have had 2 diamonds and she was trapping you?
Well, and then my trap would have gotten turned right around on me.
Yeah. There are so many variables whenever you're playing poker. It is insane. And it takes one of the best things that I ever heard come out of any person's mouth was out of Amarillo Slim's mouth in the 90s, just before he actually passed away. And he called Texas Hold'em a game that you can learn in 5 minutes, but it takes a lifetime to master. And that's probably the best line I've ever heard come out of any poker player's mouth. Because you can learn how to play Texas Hold'em, he's right, in 5 minutes. But you're not going to learn how to play it well until you've lived a lifetime. And even then, you might not learn it because there's so many variables. So let's go ahead and play another hand. Man, we're almost 2 hours into this class. We'll go for about another 10 minutes, and with 5 minutes left, we'll go ahead and we'll pause the tournament and use the last 5 minutes for Q&A. And everybody does know what a Q&A means, right? Question and answers? Okay. You never know.
At this point, I have nothing left to play with.
So we have 2 aces and a 7. And 2 diamonds. That's a good bet, asshole. That's a half pot bet. Great bet in that position. And that was beautiful. Beautifully played. Because there's 2 aces on the board, so the chances of somebody else having 2 aces or 1 ace are dramatically lowered. That is a beautiful betting on a good flop. Why did it resume already? I had it paused properly.
I haven't paused again.
Yeah.
And then we're back.
It's not moving fast enough for the pause. I need instantaneous pause. The next time that we do this, I'm going to mess around with the structure to where I can up all of the time frames, because I have the time frames way too small. Like, I'm going to make a decision time limit like a minute, and showdown presentation time slow. So I'll mess with it a little bit. So here we got 2 hearts to a 10 queen. Good betting, good betting. That ace brings out 2 different flush possibilities in diamonds and hearts both. Plus, that ace also brings out Broadway possibilities with a king-jack. Ooh, there's that min bet. Oh, it's actually... Oh, there's the king-jack! Just like I called!
Yeah, so it wasn't a min bet, it was her all in.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Did it pause
I
it in
didn't
time?
necessarily think about that.
Nope. Oh, it was good. It was good. Those, that's
Yeah,
the
with
only
her
hand that would
load
beat
chip.
you.
Yeah.
And that's a good play by you, is to put her all in. Because if she doesn't have a pat hand, she can't call. Or if she does call, she's simply calling away her chips. So that's a good play. So even though you did get beat, you played good, solid, fundamental poker, which you're going to lose at times. There are plenty of times in poker where you're going to lose, even if you make all the right plays. You can play everything perfectly and still get beat by dumb, stupid luck. But what you're wanting to do is maximize the amount of good play to where you minimize other people's lucky draws. And over a 2-hour period, over an 8-hour period, over a 3-day period, good, solid, fundamental poker play will beat stupid luck every single time. Ooh. Garbage flop. 2 jack 6. Rainbow. 3 of spades. Now that brings out some possibilities. You've got straight possibilities. You have a backdoor flush possibility with another spade. Any pair would be betting right now on this board.
Did it hit the show hand? No.
Yeah, I'm not going to pause them. I'm just going to call what I see here.
I didn't have
you know
it.
what?
I was bluffing.
We can go ahead and pause because we'll be at 2 hours and 5 minutes. So let's go ahead and review today's class. Things to think about. Oh, shoot, I should have went ahead and kept the table up. It really doesn't matter. Things to think about. Playing pocket pairs, in what position? The betting that you want to play in certain positions. The betting that you want to do in a tournament setting versus a fun game versus a live game where you're playing for real money. If you're playing for fakey chips, well, all bets off. You can pretty much play whatever way that you ever want to. But in tournament settings, always consider where the button is. Always consider what your chip stacks are. Consider the other people at the table and the fact that you don't want to let them have cheap cards. In a tournament setting, never let other players see cheap cards. Make people make a decision. A 2x bet is an instantaneous doubling of the percentages of their stack. If they have 10,000 in chips and you bet 400 versus 800, which one are you as a player more likely to fold away? If you have mediocre cards, are you going to fold away 1/10 of your chips or 1/20 of your chips? You would call for 1/20 of your chips. You might not call with 1/10 of your chips. So always consider what you're making the other person do. If you are making them make a decision, that's a good thing. If they don't have to think about making that call, that's bad. Oz, you got your mic open. Go ahead and hit me with some questions or talk about the class today. What do you think?
Oh, it was good, yeah. I mean, I definitely learned a lot. I don't know a ton about poker, so I just kind of feel it out. You know?
Well,
I mean, I know all the basics, but like when you start talking like numbers and all that, like I won't ever be the person that knows like percentages or any of that.
well,
What's up, guys?
What the fuck?
hey, Glock. Aaron, are you back yet? Narf,
I'm here.
what do you think about
yeah.
the class today?
No, it was good, and like Krista was saying, for me too, it's similar. Like early on, it's just a lot of information to take in, right? So while you're kind of putting out all that information, you know, you're trying to absorb it, but at the same time understand, well, how do I apply it, or how do I, you know? But when we actually sat down and played the game a little, it just things start to make a little more sense because you're actually looking at the cards and then going based on, well, how would I handle this situation? So it puts you a little more in real time versus almost just sitting there and absorbing information, because a lot of it after a little bit starts to get lost because you're trying to take it all in. So, but I still learned a lot either way. But I did, and the end of it like that actually was a lot more helpful because, you know, we were able to look at hands and see how people played and why certain things would be a mistake or certain things were accurate plays.
Yeah.
In a sense.
And
I have
and
one question too.
yeah, go ahead, Krista.
So after you're the dealer, after you have the dealer button, right after that, you're basically in the worst position, right? Or is it the opposite?
Actually, it's the opposite, because if you're the small
You're last
blind
down, right?
and you have the dealer button on your right, you are in the worst possible spot, because you already have chips in the pot as the small blind, and once the flop comes out, You have to do action first, and everyone else that has cards gets to act after you. The best position to be in on any poker table is the last action, the dealer button. The dealer button is the best possible spot. The penultimate spot, second best spot. You always want to have action last. So that's why the under the gun position has to play premium cards. Under the gun +1 has to play premium cards. The dealer or the small blind and the big blind do not necessarily have to play good cards. That's why if everybody min calls, well, the big blind is already in. If the blinds are 400 and they've already put 400 out there, they're playing on house money. They have 2 cards, and they might hit a magical flop. I've hit magical flops plenty of times being in the big blind. I can't count the amount of times where I've hold a 9-3 or a 9-4 or a 7 deuce and hit 3 sevens or 3 deuces or 3 nines.
Right.
I have hit quads multiple times in the big blind just because people let me limp. Okay, you're going to let me limp. I check. Roll the cards. Let's see the flop. So that's why I stress that if you have a chance, 2x, make those people make a choice on their cards. Make the small blind have to put in more chips. Make the big blind have to put in chips. Do not let them have free cards. It's disastrous because even if you have the best hand on the flop, on the turn, how many times have you gotten beaten on the river because you've given people free cards? Do not give people free cards in a tournament. And I'm sure that if you've heard me broadcasting, I have yelled at people, oh my God, why aren't you pressing the issue? You're letting them have a chance. Don't give them a chance. Once you have your foot on their neck, press down, break their windpipe. This is not about, oh, well, I want to be nice. No, you are playing for money.
Mm-hmm.
He said it. And me this time. He said it.
Narf, any questions? Man, we are 2 hours in, guys. What do you think about this
I do wanna say
class?
something.
Yeah,
Frank did
Pickles, go
say
ahead.
that- Frank did say that he prefers the actual seeing in situ education. I actually like it, but I really like that back information. This is the math. This is the numbers. That's where my real interest is, because that's where my weakness is right now. Is I don't know the numbers. I know that I can probably not do the math as well as you can, but
Well,
numbers are important to me too. I do a lot of stuff with numbers.
this is just the first class, guys. There's going to be a lot more classes. And there's going to be probably at least 4 or 5 more classes just on no limit hold'em. Then we go to pot limit hold'em. Then we go to limit hold'em. And we learn about those variations. Then I'll start teaching you guys about Omaha, Omaha high-low, Raz, stud, 5-card stud, 7-card stud, 5-card draw. There's so many variations. One of the things, if you're a true poker lover like I am, go to WSOP.com. That's the World Series of Poker.com. On their main page, you'll be able to see the results in real time of every single tournament, and World Series of Poker kicks off this week. The first tournament, I believe, starts out on Wednesday. So we've got 6 weeks of the World Series of Poker starting this week in Las Vegas.
Oh yeah, it says it starts tomorrow.
Yep. That's the
You playing?
appreciation tournament. Am I playing? No.
Oh.
I've got a full-time job. I have decided in my life that I'm not going to play professional poker until my kids are actually grown and out of the house. Once that happens, then I'll probably go back to playing a professional poker.
And I've seen it before. It doesn't look like these guys have good hygiene.
So any other questions? Mia, you haven't said a word yet. Hey, Doug Life's got his mic open. Talk to us, Doug Life.
Yeah, I got a question. So you talked about under the gun, you want your strong pairs, your aces, your kings, your queens. Down to the dealer, that's when you can start playing the threes and the twos.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your small and your big blinds there, say it just min bets or it 2x's by the time it gets around to you and your big blind. Would you play weaker hands just because you're only limping in at that point?
Well, okay. What do you think weak hand? Are you thinking 7-3 or are you talking pairs?
A weaker hand, like a king 10, let's say, king 10 offsuit.
Okay. Let's go ahead and throw out a thinking. You're in the under the gun. You have pocket aces or pocket kings, and you have 2x'd the bet. The blinds are 200, 400. So it's only another 400 of your money to see a flop. And you have an itch, and you're in the big blind, and you're thinking, he might be weak, and he might be trying to steal the blinds, even though he isn't. Well, you've got half of the bet out there. So technically, it's only costing you another bet. You're not having to call a 2x bet. You're only having to call a 1x bet because you've already got 1x out there. So those are positions where you have to make up your mind. Is it a king 10 suited? Well, I would rather play a king 10 suited than a king 10 offsuit. Because even if he has pocket aces, pocket kings, or pocket queens, a suited cards are roughly 15% better to play than unsuited cards. So if your king 10 is offsuit, you're going to have to catch 2 kings or 2 10s on the flop to beat his pocket aces or pocket queens. If he has pocket kings and you catch 2 kings on the flop, well, you're toast. So those are things that you have to think of, is what are your percentages? So I could see at times calling, if they bet 800, you've already got 400 in the pot. You have what are called pot odds, and we'll be discussing that in the intermediate classes. And pot odds are really one of the determining factors whenever you get onto professional poker tables, where a player will simply call no matter what he has in his hand because he has pot odds. And it's not costing him that much more to win 5x, to win 10x. If I'm sitting at a table and I've got 10,000 in chips in front of me, and it comes around to me and there's 80,000 in chips in the middle of the table, and I've only got 10,000 left, and somebody has put me all in, well, I have pot odds. I have 8-1 odds on my 10,000 into the middle to win 80,000 in chips that are already there. So I might call in that position with any 2 cards, and that's pot odds. The higher the pot odds, the more likely you should be to call, but we will be discussing that, like I said, in the intermediate class.
Okay. And so along those lines, say you come around to big blind, you only have to 1x to get in. You get to see the flop. Now you're in charge of betting or checking before the aggressor.
Yeah.
Would you just want to check and wait to see what the aggressor does from there?
Well, I don't know.
Or
did you hit
do
a
you
pair?
want to
Did you
come
hit
on
2 pair? Did you hit a straight? Did you hit trips?
Let's say you hit mid pair, but you
Second
had
pair.
you had king 10 and they got queens possibly. They were
Okay.
the aggressors.
So
So you don't know they have queens, but you have that mid pair with a high kicker. Do you want to aggress before that aggressor, or do you want to kind of check it to see how he plays those 3 cards?
you want to pick your spot, really. Sometimes you're going to want to do it because you want to keep everybody honest. You want to play wild, or no, let me preface that. You want to look like you're playing wild to the rest of the table, but in reality, you are playing very calculating, where you know that that person raised pre-flop, but they only 2x'd. So they pushed in 800 to your 400. Boom, the flop comes out. They have pocket queens, but you don't know that. You have a king 10, flop comes out, ace 10 9. Okay? They have a higher pair than your 10s. But if you 2x a bet on the flop after calling their 2x bet, you're now betting out. You're telling them, I've got an ace, and it doesn't matter if you have kings or queens. And I've got a good kicker. So you have to pick your spots in which you would do that, where you would pull that, trigger. I've had plenty of times where I have folded second pair. Plenty of times in my life. I've folded top pair on the flop plenty of times in my life. Did it always work out the right way? No. There's plenty of times where I should have called. But all of the times where they hit trips, or they hit 4 to a flush, or they hit 2 pair on the flop, even though I had top pair, it was a smart fold. It was a smart throwaway. So you've got to play your gut, you've got to play the odds, you've got to play your cards, you've got to play the person. There's so many things on a poker table that are all happening right at one time. And to become from that good player to the better player, you have to figure out and hit those good times and make those good calls. But at any given time, if you think, man, I should have done this, once you question yourself, you need to go back and look and see, okay, why did I do it that way? What was my thought process? What can I do to change my thought process to where I don't do it what I consider to be wrong again? Because what I consider to be the wrong play, you might not consider to be the wrong play. You might consider it to be a good play. And that's the difference in between excellent poker players and mediocre poker players, is that the excellent poker player, he might have 1 out of 1,000 hands where he goes, damn, I should have done this versus this. Whereas the mediocre poker player is going to look at 10,000 hands and go, I played them all fine. Well, which one do you want to be? Do you want to be the excellent poker player that is questioning some of his hands? Or do you want to be the mediocre poker player that plays 5,000 hands and goes, I played them all good? Well, I don't know about you, but I want to be the one that's questioning what I'm doing. You're going to make bad calls. Every poker player is going to make a bad call at some point. Every single poker player is going to get the hero card. They're going to get that river card that is going to be magical. Hell, Daniel can tell you all about a miracle card whenever he was playing me heads up. He hit the miracle card and beat me. But I had him toasted on the flop and on the turn. I had him dead to rights. He caught a miracle card to beat me. Do I moan and groan about it? No, that's poker. He played his cards the way that he thought. I got beat by a bad card. I got beat by bad luck. Did I play right? Hell yeah, I played right. I played good. I played solid. I just got beat. It's going to happen. Every poker player is going to get beat making the best possible moves at any given time. Those are things that you have to live with as a poker player. And it's those times where you question yourself. Did I do the right thing? Should I have done this in this position? If I would have done this, which is what I wanted to do in that position, it would have worked out. What was the determining factors that made me not do that in that position? So those are all things that you can only learn through minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, decades of playing. You've got to build up the amount of hands that you've seen, the amount of hands that you've thrown away, the amount of hands that you've analyzed. The only thing that makes you move from certain level to a certain level is experience. If you learned how to play poker 5 minutes ago and you go and you win a tournament at your local poker at your local poker spot, you're not a great player. You got lucky, but you're not a great player. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jesus, 2 hours and 15 minutes. Guys, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank everyone. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for joining us for our first ever Dead Poker Society beginners class with Texas Hold'em. We will be holding more of these, and I hope to see all of the players that were here in the next class. They will all have first shot at being at the table and being here on the panel, but you know what? You can always join into the Dead Poker Society. I have posted up the Discord link in the video, and if you're watching this, go ahead and hit me up on the Twitter. I am twitter.com/Lord Galaban. It's the name that I go under. A lot of these players in here, they're all good players and they want to become better. What do you want to do out there in Pokerland? With that being said, does anybody have any final thoughts?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank
I
you for
will.
your time.
Very good.